please hit that subscribe button.
Hey everybody.
Better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody, so it's time for NHL Games of the Week, where I look ahead at the upcoming week in the NHL and pick out which games I think will be the best and most exciting to watch. Before we get into it, I just quickly want to remind everyone to please hit that like button and give the video a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Both of those things greatly help out and are very much appreciated. So, pretty good week this week. As you can see, the board is pretty full here. We got a good number of solid games to watch this week. Starting with today, Sunday the 23rd, we've got Pittsburgh versus Washington this afternoon, which I will be live streaming during. That should be a great matchup with first place in the Metro Division on the line between these two teams. St. Louis versus Minnesota. Obviously a huge Central Division matchup there. St. Louis trying to maintain a Central Division lead. Minnesota fighting for their playoff lives. Divisional game. Absolutely massive game for both of these teams and should be a great one. Tomorrow, the 24th, there's only one game in the NHL tomorrow, and it's not Game of the Week worthy. I believe it's Ottawa and Columbus. So, nothing for the 24th. Moving on to the 25th, Tuesday night, we've got Toronto versus Tampa Bay. The number 2 and 3 teams in the Atlantic Division. Toronto fighting for their playoff lives. Tampa Bay trying to catch Boston and take over the division lead. This is a massive game, especially for the Maple Leafs in particular, against a opponent higher than them in the standings. That is a huge game for Toronto. Should be a lot of fun between those divisional rivals. New York Rangers versus New York Islanders. Now the Rangers kind of still in it. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they've been playing really well as of late. They're not completely out of it yet. They would need a lot to go their way for them to make the playoffs, but points-wise, they've kept themselves somewhat still in it. So, huge game there for them, obviously, and then the Islanders, wild card spot right now, trying to maintain a playoff position. And then it's New York versus New York. It's Rangers-Islanders. There's a natural rivalry there. Makes this a really fun, interesting game, no matter how good or bad each of the teams are. And Chicago versus St. Louis. Chicago's not very good this year. They're the worst team in the Central Division, but it's still Blackhawks and Blues. There's a huge natural rivalry there. They've been a historic rivalry there. So anytime those two teams meet up, it's definitely Game of the Week worthy. 26, we have Edmonton versus Vegas. This is a huge game that, depending on how things go over the course of the week, could possibly be for first place in the Pacific Division. Two of the top 3 teams in the Pacific there going at it between the Oilers and Golden Knights. Obviously just, a huge game there. The 27th, Thursday, we've got Toronto versus Florida. Another huge game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Also a huge game for the Florida Panthers. If a team is going to knock Toronto out of the playoffs, it's going to have to be the Florida Panthers. And, Florida's not playing all that well here recently. Toronto not exactly playing all that well here recently. So, this is going to be a massive game between those two teams, possibly for third place in the final playoff spot on the line in the Atlantic Division. So, it's just absolutely huge there. Big week for the Maple Leafs, to say the least, with the Lightning on Tuesday and the Panthers on Thursday. Massive week for them. Also that night, Calgary versus Nashville. Again, those are two teams fighting for wild card position in the Western Conference. Both have 68 points as of right now, me recording this. Obviously, that will change tonight when Calgary plays. But just that's a huge matchup there, and could be for a playoff spot in the Western Conference. The 28th on Friday, we have the New York Rangers versus Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, like talked about earlier, the Rangers trying to keep themselves somewhat within playoff contention, fighting for that last spot. Philadelphia looking pretty good this year, and right now in third place in the Metro. They're having a really solid year. And then there's just obviously the natural rivalry between the Rangers and Flyers. They've been longtime rivals. And you know, it's just anytime those two teams meet, it's a divisional game. Whether the teams are fighting for playoff spots, fighting for first place, or fighting for last place, when the Rangers and Flyers meet up, it's a good rivalry game and a game of the week. And finally, Saturday the 29th, we've got Boston versus the New York Islanders. I believe for the final time this season. Yeah, this should be the third and final time that they play this year. Again, two playoff teams in the East, should be a really fun game. And the games they've played earlier this year between the Isles and the Bruins have been really, really good. Colorado versus Nashville. That's a huge game in the Central Division as Colorado is fighting for the division lead. Nashville is fighting to get into a playoff spot. Just huge 2 points on the line for both of those teams. Plus, they're division rivals, so that should be a really good one. Another Central Division game and rivalry there, Dallas versus St. Louis. That also two teams fighting for first in that division. Dallas, St. Louis, and Colorado all going for first place in the Central. That's going to be an absolutely massive game there. And St. Louis blew Dallas out the last time they played, so we'll see if Dallas has an answer this time and maybe can turn the tides a little bit. But that should be a huge game in the Central. And finally, Winnipeg versus Edmonton, two playoff teams out west fighting to make sure that they stay in a playoff position. Edmonton third place right now as of recording in the Pacific. Winnipeg in a wild card spot. This is just a huge matchup. Canadian teams, should be a really, really good game. Two good teams, and we'll see which one can come out on top. But that will be a high-quality game. So, quite a few games this week, guys. Pretty good week in the NHL. A lot of playoff implications, obviously, on the line here. Yeah, we'll see how the week goes. But those are definitely, I think, the games of the week that I will definitely be watching as many of that I can. And I hope you guys are able to watch some of them as well. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.